Yeah, welcome back to our JavaScript class. So today we are going to talk about data types and variables. So two things we're going to be talking about. So we talked about operators yesterday. So now let's look into data. Let's talk about data types. So what is a data type? A data type simply means this simply means data type simply means type of data. It simply means type of data. If you visit the definition of computer, what a computer is, a computer is said to be an electronic device that accepts data, store data, process data, and give output based on the data processing. So, and for the computer to process data, it has to understand the type of that data that it will be processing. That is very important for the computer to know that the type of data that it will be processing. So data type simply means what? Types of data. Now let's look at the types of data that we have to work with in JavaScript. Let's just look at the basic one. The first one is integer. Integer can be anything from 0 to 9. So integer, that is an integer. It means from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So in the collection, let's just say numbers. Understand? So mostly JavaScript use numbers, but for standard someone who is looking to be long-term programmer, so just understand that it is what an integer. Now another data type there is we have a boolean. Boolean. Boolean means true or false. So what normal people refer to as yes or no. So Boolean value can be either true or what false. So it is either true or it can be what false. The another data type that we have there is string. String. So string data can be anything that is wrapped inside a what? A quotation. You understand? For instance, I want to write a text. Like in programming, I can't say bool. This is wrong, or I can say Tife. This is wrong in programming. So I need to wrap or inside the what? A quotation. So that it means it's a what? It's a string type. So that is string. So the first one we have integer, we have boolean, we have string, and also we have floating numbers. We have float. Float is in decimal places. For instance, I can say 0.1. That is in float. So also we have decimal. Some people call it decimal or double. So you can say that is in say 100.00. So in case if I want to do something for like a data type or something like a salary, you understand? So or money value, monetary value. So it's better use decimal. So these are basic data types that we have in most of the programming language, and we work perfectly in JavaScript. So now that we have an idea of what data type is, let's look at the other part we are going to talk about, which is what is a variable. What is a variable? Now, a variable can be defined. It can be defined as a container, a, a container used to store or hold data temporarily in the system memory. So it's used to store old data temporarily in the system memory. So that's what a variable is. Now let me simplify. Let me try to make us understand it and give us examples. Now, for instance, if I bought a bottle of water, if I have a bottle of water, like a normal bottle of water, like your seaway water or whatever, and if you look at it, inside the bottle there is a liquid content inside. And the moment I finish taking the water, that bottle without the water become useless to me. So which means I can discard it or I can trash it. I can trash it rather. I can trash it in the waste bin. So because it's no longer useful to me. Another scenario is if I buy a milk, a tin milk. The moment I finish the milk inside the tin, that thing becomes useless to me. So which means I needed it trashed. I need to trash it in the waste bin. So which means that that thing or that bottle, they are just there temporarily. They are just container that is holding the content, which can be the water or the milk. So I cannot have the milk without that content because there is nowhere I'm going to store the milk. So I need to store the milk inside the tin or the water inside the bottle, which is the holder. Do you understand now? So that is what a variable is. A variable is a memo, is a storage. It's like a storage place where we store data temporarily in the system memory. That's why you say it's defined as what a container that is used to hold data temporarily in the system memory. Now let's see how we declare variable in JavaScript. To declare variable in JavaScript, even if you go back to the definition of computer again, you say computer is an electronic device that accepts data. When you accept data, it stores the data. So for it to accept the data need to be held somewhere. That is inside a what variable. So now let's look at how to declare variable in JavaScript. So to declare variable in JavaScript, you can use the keyword by var, then we can have an identifier, like say variable a. I can declare a variable like this, and this, remember, this is me declaring a variable. This is just a variable declaration. This variable is not initialized. So this variable needs to be what initialized. Now, this means I'm just declaring this variable. I'm just saying I have this. For instance, let's just say I bought a shoe. Now, me not wearing that shoe does not mean I don't have it. But if I'm not putting it on, nobody knows that I have it. It means it's not in use. So this variable right now is not what? It's not initialized. It's not initialized. It's not in use. Now, but if I declare it this way, so var a equals to 10, this is variable that is initialized at the point of declaration. So we can say this is what implicitly what declared what variable. And in another way, I can still say for this variable that was declared here by a, and at this point, I have declared this variable, but this variable is not initialized. And I can come back and initialize this variable by saying a now is equal to 20. So what I've done here is I have explicitly what declared this variable. It means at the first time I declare this variable and I come back again to what now to initialize. Let me give us a typical example. For those of us that were Nigerian based, or most times when you attend an event, maybe you went for a meeting, you went for an event, they always give us souvenirs. For us in Africa, like mostly in Nigeria, our parents, when they go for an outing, the wedding ceremony, or all of that, they come back with a souvenir, sometimes pot, sometimes bucket. You notice most of these times we have in our store, these buckets, these pots are just there. They are not used. Okay, another example is maybe in our house, in our kitchen, we have a lot of pots, set of pots. We cannot use all of those pots at the same time. Now, those pots, they are there. It means they are declared. We have them. So they are not in use. Now, the moment we need to use this pot, it means we are initializing them. So it means we need to come back and say, let's say var pot. Var pot means we have this pot, but we are not using this pot. Now, if you want to put this pot to use, you cannot come back and say pot equals to 10. Now it means we are using this pot. We can say pot equals to what? Cookie. It means now this port is being what initialized as being in use. That's what this means now. It means this port is being what initialized. Okay, so that is that for variable declaration. So we can declare variable implicitly and we can declare variable explicitly. It means you initialize variable at the point of declaring that variable, or you can declare a variable and in later in later you can now initialize it. Now let's look at another thing that is important about variable. Now we can talk about variable scope. Variable scope simply means How accessible is that variable? How what accessible is that variable? It means how can we access that variable? Talk about the scope of the variable. So in JavaScript, uh, we have global variable, we have local variable, we have a global variable. So a local variable is a variable that is limited to what? To a method or a function. So in C Sharp or Java, we call them method. But in JavaScript, we call it function. So it's the same thing, function or method. I might use them in between, but it means the same. So a local variable is a variable that is limited to what? A function. For instance, if I declare a function saying function do, function calculate. We are still going to talk about function. I declare this function calculate, and inside this function, I declare a variable, say var first number equals to 10. Now, this variable here that I have here is a local variable because this variable can only work inside this function. Outside this function, this variable become what? Useless. It cannot work. It will not work. So this variable now is referred to us as a local variable. Now, a global variable is a variable that we can declare that can work in all parts of our code. And JavaScript supports a local variable and global variable. You understand? So now let's look at another way of declaring a variable. Instead of using var, so we can use also declare a variable by using what? Let and const. And let's understand the differences. Now, if I declare my variable as var name, eh, now the problem with this is that this variable var name equals to Tunde. This variable can be declared and can be updated, and this will give us a lot of inconsistency. This will give us a lot of inconsistency. So to give us a lot of inconsistency. So I can come back and say name equals to body. This is absolutely correct, but this is a problem. So that is why we move with the option of declaring variable instead of using var to let. Now, if I declare a variable as let name, it means this variable, when I declare a variable as let, it cannot be redeclared. If I declare a variable with var, it can be declared, redeclared, and the value can be updated. But if I declare a variable with let, it means the variable cannot be declared, cannot be redeclared again. So which give us a standard way of working. So that's why it is advisable to declare your variable with what? Let. So if I say let name equals to body, it means I can never declare any variable called with the identifier of name anymore. But I can update this variable. I can now come and say name is equals to what? Tunde. This is correct. This is correct. So I can only update the value of the variable, but I cannot redeclare that variable. Now let's understand the two differences now. Var, it means if I declare a variable with var, that variable name can be redeclared and the value can be what? Updated. But if I declare a variable with let, the variable can never be redeclared. That is the proper way, which means we are going with what? Let. And the last one, we can declare a variable by using what? Const. So const means what? Constant. When we use constant, it means if I want a variable that is used in my entire application and the value does not change, the value remains the same. If I say const, const age equals to 20, it means the entire of my program, I cannot change age. Age remains as what? 20. The moment I use what? Const, it means it is what? Constant. Now it means my age is constant. So, but normally for declaration, it's better we use what? We use let. Now we are going to continue by using what? Let. Now let's get into some practicals and let's see how to use variables and data types. So in the same way, let's use just rid of this. And let's say um let's say let's do a simple calculator. Let first number equals to 10 now. And if you look at this is correct. Now, one thing also to note about variable in JavaScript is JavaScript is a loose coupled programming language. It's a loose type programming language. So if you look at here, I have let first number equals to 10. Do you understand? So JavaScript is referred as what a loose coupled programming language because in my way of declaring this variable, I do not know the data type of this identifier, which is first number, until I add a value to it. So which means if I say this, it is correct. If I say first number equals to 10, it's correct. So I only know that first number is equal to 10 because now it's a string. If you can understand what I'm saying. So it's not like other programming language where at the point of declaration, I tell them the types of data type that must be passed into that variable. So we don't do that in JavaScript. That's why it's called what? A loosely typed programming language. Unlike Java, which is a strongly typed programming language, and C Sharp, which is a strongly typed programming language. So JavaScript is a loosely coupled programming language, a loose typed programming language. So which means it's still correct. So, but since we want to do with numbers, so this is an integer. So now this is correct. So you can come here and say let first number equals to 10 and let second number number equals to 20. Now you can see. So it means I am storing the value of 10 inside first number. I think I talked about assignment operator in our last class. So if you don't understand, you can still visit our last class where I talk about operators. And in this one now, second number, I am storing 20. I'm assigning 20 inside second number. It means anywhere I see first number, I see 10. Anywhere I see second number, I see 20. Now let me have another variable. Say let sum equals to first number plus second number. Now, what this means now, if you remember now, my first number here now is what? It's holding the value of what? Of 10. While my second number here now is holding the value of what? It's holding the value of 20. So if I print this now, I show us a lot of ways to print. I can say alert. In our last class, we talked about how to display information on the screen. If I say alert sum, and I come here, I put my terminator here. This is going to do this sum variable is holding the value of first number, is plusing it with what? The value of what? Second number. Now let's run this in the browser and let's see what is going to give us. Starting. You can see it says it is what? 30. And if we go back to our code, we all know that 10 plus 20 is what? 30. Our first number is 10 and our second number is what? 20. So 10 plus 20 will give us what? 30. That is automatically. But if we can also display this by using our DOM mode, by saying document dot get element. I talked about this too, but ID, and our ID is what? Output. If you check the last class, you can still go back and check this. Dot inner HTML. Inner HTML is equals to this variable now, sum. So now in this H1 now, it means we are going to display in this section. You can see our H1, the ID is what? Output. So it means inside this document, go and look for where the element is what? Output. Insert in the HTML the value of this variable, that is what? Sum. Sum is holding the value of what? 10 plus what? 20. Now if we go back to our browser and we refresh our browser, we should be getting our value for what? 10 plus 20, which is 30. First number plus second number. Now, that is what to note about variable. We can also do other stuff. So it doesn't need to be about numbers. So we can say, what about we try something like saying first name, and we say last name, and we say full we declare a variable and call this variable full name. Then here we want to add our first name and last name together to give us full name. So our variable of full name, you can see here our first name is holding the value of here. Let's call this Boluwatife, Boluwatife, and our last name is Damilare. You can see. So this is our first name is we are assigning into our first name. We are storing Boluwatife inside this variable, and here we are storing Damilare inside the variable of our last name. So in this case, we now be what first name plus last name. There is something we must know how to do that is called string concatenation. Now, if I display this, let's go to our browser and let's run this. Give us nothing, but because we've not done the right thing, this is no longer sum. We don't have sum anymore. So we don't have a variable called sum. So we have a variable called full name. And why it is not detecting that error? Because JavaScript does not compile. It's not a compiling programming language. Do you understand? So it does not compile. So if it's like other programming language now that compiles, you will have seen that error. So you must note this about JavaScript. It does not compile. Do you understand? It only process. So now let's go back now. So you can see Boluwatife. Now both words, both variables are joined together. So this doesn't make sense to the head. So if you are dealing with string, there's something we call string concatenation. So what you just do is come here and put this, and you put a plus here, and do this. Sorry, yeah, okay. So with this now, I should get a space between them. So sorry, it said now. Putting this somewhere. Now I got it here. So you can see now I have Boluwatife and there is a space in between them. It's because I have concatenated them by using this method. So this method there we call here, you call what string concatenation. Automatically we give it space, we give space, you understand, between two variables. So it's called we normally use that for string. You can't use that for integer. So you cannot use that for other program or other data types. So we only use that for string because our Boluwatife now, our first name is holding a string value. That is why we can do this here. So that's why we refer to use what string concatenation. So before we round up, let me give us another bonus. So let's talk about a function that we use to collect input from the keyboard. So it's called a prompt function. Instead of me now using this literal like add coding, understand? Add coding this data because this is what this method is called add coding. What is add coding? When you declare a variable and you automatically adding the value by yourself, it's called hard coding process. It means you are hard coding the value directly by yourself. So normally in standard programming, we don't do that. Now, before we begin to use DOM properly, let's change this and use what? A prompt, let's use a prompt function. Just enter prompt and now just say enter uh, your first name. So this will give you a better way. I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to paste it here. And let's change this to enter your last name. And you can see this is going to be very, very much better than what we have. You can see it's just saying, let's refresh it. Let's refresh. You can see now it's saying enter your first name. Now I can say Olusoji. Our press enter is going to give me the last name. I can say damn live. And if I say enter, it's going to come here and give me what Olusoji damn live. Exactly. So that is how to use variable, and that is how to use what the prompt function. So we understand now from this what a data type is. The data type simply means what type of data, and we understand that we have basically 4 or 5 types of data. We have the string, we have the integer. Integer means numbers. String is anything to display text, but it must be what encode in what quotes. Then we have also the Boolean value, which is true or false. Then we have the floating numbers, and we can also use decimal for bigger value of float. Now, so that's about what data type. Then we move to variables. So variable are what? Are memory location that are used to store all data temporarily. So they are storage locations or they are containers that are used to hold data temporarily in the system what memory. So we talk about the scope of variable. So we look at the scope of variable. We say we have global and we have what local. Then we talked about in which way, how many ways, 3 ways that we can declare a variable. We talk about the var, the let, and the const, and they give us the differences. That the var, once you declare a variable with var, it means it can be declared and the value can be updated. So the standard one is to use the let, because when you declare a variable with let, the variable cannot be declared, which give us a lot of consistency. And the last one is the const. It means we only declare a variable that we don't want the value to change when we want a constant value. So we use what? Const. So and then we go on to create a simple calculator where we first put to see this variable in live actions. Then later we use to create a simple application that displays and put our what our first name and our last name. So here we can see we have first name and we are using a prompt function. So how do you know this is a function? Function is when you have a word, a keyword that is followed by open and close bracket. So that is a prompt function. Do you understand? So that is a function. When you have a word, for instance, if I have, we are going to talk about function. So I don't want this video to be extra long. So it's almost 26 minutes, and that should be okay for us. So go about this. You watch the video so you can have a proper understanding of what a variable is. So thank you guys for coming. Don't forget to like this video, like and share. Please do not forget to and like and to subscribe rather. So like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.